Today is the 3rd of March 2025, and it's a very, very important day because it marks the end of a set of regulations that scammers have been using to scam people for years. So if anybody ever tells you that you need a WOWGR to own a cask of whiskey or to get that delivery order, they're either blatantly trying to scam you or they're dangerously misinformed, because as of today, the 3rd of March 2025, the WOWGR regulations have been repealed. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into what this means for any cask owners out there. Now, obviously, welcome back to the channel, everyone. I've been missing in action for a long time, but you know what? We've been doing a lot of things. The Whiskey Wash, which is the website that I bought a couple of years ago now, or 18 months ago now, is the most visited whiskey website in the world. How cool is that? Likewise, we've been on with a lot of things, but I thought let's get back to the channel and let's get some video content made because this is an important day. Now, let's jump into WOWGR. So what was WOWGR? Because if you've ever dealt with casks of whiskey in Scotland or in the UK or related to Scotch whiskey, you probably would have come across the term WOWGR. Now, it was the warehouse keepers and owners of warehouse goods regulations, and it was introduced in October 1999. And I'm not going to get into the politics of this, but go onto LinkedIn if you want to jump into the politics of it. But it was basically as a way for HMCE it was at the time, to try and prevent alcohol diversion fraud that apparently cost hundreds of millions of pounds to the Exchequer in the 1990s. Now, crucially, WOWGR only ever applied to spirits, beer and tobacco. It didn't include wine or petrochemicals. So essentially what WOWGR was, it was a framework that regulated the warehouse keepers and the owners of those goods under bond. So, or technically under duty suspense. So if you buy a cask of whiskey, there's no VAT or duty paid on it, so it's under duty suspense. Now, you could go out there today, or historically, you could have gone out and owned 1 million cases of wine or 10 million litres of oil, and you wouldn't have needed WOWGR registration. You would only have needed that WOWGR registration for spirits, beer and tobacco. So it was massively unbiased from the start because of lobbying from certain parts of the industry. But anyway, the regulations required that any business, not a private individual, any business that was holding duty suspended goods to be registered on this scheme and get HMRC approval. And likewise, overseas owners needed to be represented by what was known as a duty representative. But as of today, the 3rd of March 2025, the WOWGR regulations have disappeared and pretty much entirely. I'll come on to them properly in a moment. So, and it was Alan Powell has been somebody who's been like championing the abolishment of WOWGR for years. And this is why I say get on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, look at Alan Powell if you want to get into the ins and outs of it, but it's been abolished. So as of the 3rd of March 2025, it has been, so WOWGR has basically been amended to become WR. Well, what does that mean? So it's basically warehouse keeper regulations. So the OWG, the owners of warehouse goods, have been removed from this legislation entirely. Now, this means that the WOWGR, historic WOWGR regulations only applies to a warehouse keeper. So literally, if anyone's trying to tell you that WOWGR still exists today, just be worried. Now, how was this used to commit fraud? Like, where's the proof that people were using WOWGR to commit fraud? Well, look, if you're watching this video and you own a cask of whiskey and you've not got a delivery order, you were possibly told that you need a WOWGR to get that delivery order. Utter nonsense. The old regulations didn't apply to private individuals. There was a bit of a grey area about how many casks you could own, but it didn't apply to private individuals at all. So scammers have always used WOWGR by telling you that you needed a WOWGR to own that cask. The reality was that they couldn't give you that delivery order, which gives you the direct connection to that cask, because he didn't have the relations with the warehouses in the first instance. So there's many reasons why they might not have told you that. Maybe they didn't want you to ever take ownership of that cask for whatever reason. But what they did, instead of giving you that delivery order, which is what the Scotch Whisky Association advises that you get and everybody in the industry gets, is giving you a certificate. And these certificates are just basically, look, I've got a printer here. I could print you off a certificate all day long. It's just meaningless. It's just a piece of paper with the name of a cask on and whatever. Now, I would second guess that the majority of you out there who haven't got a delivery order and you're just trusting your certificate at face value, you've never called up that warehouse to check that your cask is where it says it is, or the details are what they say they are. Without that delivery order, you really have no idea what you've bought. You might have just bought thin air. So we now get to the crux of the matter and like the truth about this repeal of WOWGR. And I think how are we going to start pronouncing WOWGR going forward, or WR? The WR regulations? Well, to be honest with you, it will just fall out of the vocabulary because it won't apply to 99% of the people that are dealing with casks. It's only a very small number of warehouse keepers in Scotland. So again, what is the crux of the matter? So the repeal of WOWGR. Okay, let's look at cask owners first of all. Right. You now can call up that cask investment company that you bought your cask of whiskey from and say, WOWGR has been repealed, I would now like my delivery order. If you get any equivocation, or to say that the warehouse won't let you open an account and stuff like that, why have they sold it you in the first place? So question that. It also means that there's going to be easier transfer between owners because, again, if you've got 20 casks or 5 casks or 50 casks, you're not necessarily going to fall into that grey area of WOWGR now. It means that you can own as many casks as you like. You can essentially set up as a business holding as many casks as you want. It also means that if you're a business yourself and you want to invest business funds, which is bloody risky, into a cask maturation program, you can do that without the necessity of WOWGR regulations. And it also means that international owners don't need duty representation. So you don't need a duty rep anymore. So broadly speaking, the abolishment of WOWGR is going to mean much closer ties between the owners of the goods and the warehouse keepers, which is exactly how it should have been in the first instance. Now, there was some chatter at the start of this of whether this is going to like open the door to more scammers and more people trying to scam people. Because now anybody can set up a cask investment company without having to be registered for WOWGR. But like, the problem with that is that they used to hide behind this fake wall of WOWGR to transfer ownership, whereas that just doesn't exist anymore. Like this lexicon of, oh, we'll manage your cask for you, doesn't exist. You buy a cask, you manage it, it's your asset. You know, management is just basically another way of saying we won't give you the ownership of that cask. So I don't believe that this is going to lead to a rise of cask investment companies because, yes, even though the bar has been lowered, the bar that you need to pass is basically the relationship with the warehouse keepers hasn't been lowered at all. So practical advice going forward, how do you protect yourself? Basically, if anyone is mentioning a WOWGR in 2025, they are lying to you or they don't understand the law because that has been abolished and repealed. It's nonsense. You really need to go and get a delivery order if you haven't got a delivery order already. That is the only way that you will own those casks. And look, London City Police are looking into people. Various cask companies are going into liquidation. Lots of cask companies are proving very difficult to get hold of. It's funny that the fall of interest rates or the rise in interest rates stops people investing in these alternatives, so they stop making money. So this has been a very historic day for anybody who's been trying to protect the public and consumers in casks of whiskey. So, practical advice, if you've not got that delivery order, finish this video and go and contact the company who you bought that cask from and ask that for the delivery order right now.